Hi, Brian. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. And you see, just like I mentioned earlier, Brian, thank you for honoring the invite. It means a whole lot. Thank you so very much. I truly appreciate that. Okay, Brian, I am quite excited to have you on the show for some reasons. All right. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking, because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, Brian, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge, while darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. And you see, that's going to make our conversation here today very, very important to me and even to the audience. Now, the second reason why I'm excited to have Brian on the show is for the sake of the audience now. I believe there are some things that Brian knows that some of the listeners needs to hear you say these stuff, directly from your mouth in order for them to get unstuck and experience transformation. I firmly believe that. And lastly, that is me again. I am convinced that I'm definitely going to learn one or two things from you, your story, your insights, and your experiences. So, for that reason, Brian, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your journey, how you got here. Then, afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Brian, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate everything that you've said. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and throughout those 50 years, life. It's funny. People ask me sometimes, "What's your plan for 5 years from now? What's your 5 year plan?" And after I think about it, I think, at no point has a plan like that ever even been close to being right. I mean, 5 years ago, if somebody had told me that I'd have my own business and be doing keynote speaking and be doing stunts again full time with a new family, with a fiance and two stepsons, I'd have told them they were crazy. That was not in the plan at all, but that's where I am. So, and a lot of that does come down to just being open to new knowledge, open to new opportunities, open to new people, and just saying yes. So that's why, you said thanks for accepting the invite. I will say yes as often as I can to whatever I can, because I think that's so important to move forward in life. So just a little bit about me. That's where I'll start. I'll start now and then work backwards, I guess. Yeah, I am a stuntman. I work in TV shows and movies. I've been doing that for 30 years. I've done quite a few of them. And I also am a sport and performance psychologist. So what is that? That's somebody who works with athletes and performers meaning singers, dancers, musicians, actors, stunt people even, to help them make sure that they've got their minds right for what it is that they're doing, to make sure that they're completely set up for success, no matter what performance they're engaged in, no matter what they want to do, no matter what area they're in. How can we create conditions for them to be able to perform their best on cue in the moment when they want to? And that touches on a lot of different topics. A few of the ones that come up most often are motivation. How do we stay motivated over a long period of time, particularly when we experience challenges like injuries or setbacks or rejection? Another is confidence. How do we keep our confidence, build our confidence, sustain our confidence, even when competing with hard people and going up against challenging competition? And another is dealing with nervousness and anxiety and the stress that comes along with different performance settings. It would be really surprising, I think, to a lot of people how many high-level performers get incredibly nervous and anxious before doing what they're so good at doing and what they love doing so much. So that's another area that I focus on. So how do we deal with pressure? How do we maintain motivation? And how do we get and stay confident? Those are three of the big areas that I end up working with people on as a sport performance psychologist. I'm also an author. I have a book called Begin Again, Utilize the Wisdom of Eastern and Western Ideologies to Achieve Your Full Potential. And I'm working on my next book. I'm about halfway done with A Stuntman's Guide to Motivation. And what else? So stunts, author, sport performance psychologist, and dad. I have a family. I have a daughter of my own, and now I have two stepsons. So, life stays busy. And I've transitioned so many times over the years. I dropped out of college and went to be a stuntman, and then I went back to college, and then I left stunts to do sport and performance psychology with the U.S. Army, and then I left the job with the Army to go be a stuntman again. And then I went back to the Army after a divorce. And then I left the Army again to open my own business. So there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of transition. And I just go back to what I opened with, which is I attribute all of that to just being willing and open to saying yes to opportunities when they come up. I have no idea what's coming even the rest of this day, and let alone, a year from now or 5 years from now. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I got that. One thing that I learned from your story so far is you're always willing to offer solutions to whatever aspect that you've been involved in that needs it. You mentioned how you transition, and I believe from those transitioning, you're actually engaging in things that were offering solutions. And I love that. And you said you are open to new knowledge, and that's amazing. I love that about you. And you also mentioned pressure, and I feel like we should talk about that. So, shall we get started with the questions, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So let us talk about how to handle pressure, how to reframe it as a choice rather than a necessity. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I handle high pressure situations? Or I'll talk to leaders and they're trying to hire people and they'll say, okay, I need somebody who's really good in pressure situations. They know how to perform under pressure. And, the more I've thought about it, the more I've read about it, and the more I've been in those situations that most people would consider high pressure situations, I realize that pressure is not inevitable. It's not something that we have to experience. Pressure is something that we create for ourselves. It's not, in other words, there aren't high pressure situations. There are simply situations in which we feel pressure. So, for example, I might be in a situation where somebody's asking me to fall downstairs as a stuntman, and you might be in that same situation. Well, you might feel a lot of pressure in that situation, whereas,
A lot.
it's something that I've done a lot of times, and I don't feel that same pressure. Or, for example, maybe it all comes down to what we think about. It all comes down to what we focus on. So, for example, let's say that you're a new stunt person and you got hired on this show, and you have the stunt coordinator looking at you, and you have the director looking at you, and all these people watching you. And what you think is, oh my goodness, if I screw this up, they're all going to know I'm never going to get another job. I can't pay my bills. I'm never going to make it as a stuntman if I make a mistake. Well, if that's where our focus is, of course we're going to feel pressure. Of course we're going to be nervous. Of course we're going to be tight and not able to perform well. Whereas if we turn that around and we think about pressure as an opportunity, and we or not the pressure, but the situation as an opportunity, and we think about it as, wow, look at me. I've got the stunt coordinator watching me. I've got the director watching me. I know I can do this skill well. And when I do, that's going to lead to more work. Think about how many more jobs I'm going to be able to get, and the opportunity to show these people and to do what I love doing. Well, now, if that's my perspective and that's what I'm focusing on, I don't feel pressure. I feel excitement. I feel ready. I'm leaning in. I'm engaged in the activity. I'm not afraid of it. There's no threat. I'm excited about it and looking forward to it. Now, the situation hasn't changed. I'm about to do a stair fall, and director and stunt coordinator and a bunch of people are looking at me. It's all about what I choose to think about and what I choose to focus on. So that's where pressure comes from. It's not inevitable. There aren't situations that will definitely make people feel pressure. It really is an individual thing about how we look at the situation.
Powerful words. That was well explained, and I got it. I got it. And I mentioned in the beginning, Brian, I said, I am convinced that I'm definitely going to learn one or two things from you. And that is happening already. Man, you said some amazing stuff, I tell you. It depends on the status of our minds and how we view the stuffs. You know, like the one like that kind of mind now that you feel okay, I've got this person and this person watching me, and if I screw this up, I'm gonna lose the job. You know, it creates that urgency, that disturbed within the mind now, uneasiness that might lead to that person to flop the stuff. And but the other part where you mentioned that, oh, if this actually work out, it's actually going to bring in more gigs and all of that. So you're right. It depends on how we view the situation. And folks who haven't gone into that understanding would not know that it is possible to reframe the situation, just like you explained. And that's why I think it is very, very necessary for people to listen to this podcast, because you said some amazing stuffs that are really educating. You know, there are different means that different people might actually offer as to handling pressure, but this particular one you said is very practical, and I love it. I love it. Okay,
Well,
so let us,
and even
yeah.
more than that, let me just expand on that, because even more than that is, yes, it's very important when we're in these situations how we're choosing to perceive it, whether it's an opportunity or whether it's a threat. Like I said, if we perceive it as a threat, like we think something bad might happen to us, we're going to experience pressure. There's going to be a lot of pressure. Whereas if we look at it as an opportunity and we acknowledge and look for on purpose the things that could come out good for us at the end, now it's an opportunity, and we don't experience the pressure. We experience excitement. We look forward to it. However, there's even more than that, because both opportunity and threat, we're looking at the future about what might happen. So when I do this, if I do well, here are the good things that could happen. Or if I do badly, here are the bad things that could happen. We're focusing on the future. But we can eliminate pressure even quicker if we just think about the present, the now, this moment, rather than the future. So in other words, if I want to do well at whatever the performance is, in this case, we were talking about a stair fall. It could be a presentation in front of an audience. It could be a penalty kick in a soccer game. It could be, my daughter she auditioned for a singing and dancing show just yesterday. And this was a conversation that I had with her. It could be that. It doesn't matter what it is. But if we want to do well, there are certain things that we need to do in order to set conditions for that good performance. So, for example, if I'm going to give a presentation in front of an audience, I need to, in this moment, make sure that my energy level is where it should be. I need to make sure that my mind is focused on the words that I'm saying and on my body language, what I'm communicating with my body and through my gestures. I need to make sure that I keep in my mind and focused the points that I'm trying to make. So if I'm doing that, if I'm paying attention to right now, in this moment, the things I can do immediately in order to set conditions for success, then I can't feel nervous. I can't feel pressure, because pressure by definition exists in the future. It's about being worried about what might happen bad. That's what creates pressure. But if we're just focusing on, okay, well, what can I do right now? I can take some breaths. I can shake out my shoulders. I can put my focus on the first place I'm going to land. For example, on the stair fall, that's what I would do is when they call action, there's a place I'm going to land. I put my focus there and I put my body there. And then each step of the way, as I roll, I put my body into a position that allows me to land safely. That's a present moment thing. So one of the tools that I recommend so much to people is mindful meditation, mindfulness, being able to tune into our awareness in this moment. And then not blocking out thoughts, but just being tuned into right now. What right now do I need to attend to in order to be successful?
Amazing. I got that. I got that. And you see, not being able to handle pressure at times might make a brilliant person looks like a dullard. You know, back then in college, something similar happened where because of the large amount of crowd students now, that particular person became so pressured and he just lost it all. He couldn't concentrate and ooh, till he left the stage. And I think this is a very important topic that many folks need to actually understand that in order to, like you mentioned, eliminate pressure, we need to focus on the now and not the future. I got that. Okay, so lastly, let
Yeah,
us talk
it's
about.
really important because sometimes we get way too focused on the outcome, on the goal that we're trying to achieve, that thing at the end of our journey. Whereas where our attention is best placed is right now. What are those things I need to do now that carry me forward in a way that will make it more likely that I will eventually achieve that outcome? It's like when we play soccer or football, depending on what part of the world your audience is in. We want to win the game. Great. That's the goal. But what do we do in order to win the game? We have to score goals. Okay, great. Well, what do we have to do in order to score goals? Well, we have to be able to dribble well, and we have to be able to pass well, and we have to be able to be aggressive and challenge on defense. And when we fall down, we have to get back up again very quickly. Great. Those are things we can focus on right now. So if it's time to dribble, dribble well. If it's time to pass, pass well. And if you do all of those things in the moment, the end result takes care of itself.
That's right. The end result takes care of itself. I got that. So let us talk about the signs of motivation. You know, how we can cultivate internal drive for lasting success. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, that's I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. You said we only had 20 minutes, so I'm going to go through it as succinctly as I know how. There are two parts. When I talk about motivation, there are two things that I discuss. One is what most people refer to, and that's levels of motivation. Are we really motivated or are we not very motivated? And what are the things that affect that? And there really are three things that affect the levels of motivation we experience. One is the extent to which we believe we're capable of being successful at whatever we should be motivated to do. So when we talk about motivation, we're talking about a specific behavior, an action, a goal-directed behavior trying to achieve something. So are we motivated or not? Well, if we believe we can be successful at the behavior, we can do it well, then we're more likely to be motivated than if we don't think we're capable of being successful. The second thing is the extent to which we care about the behavior, the extent to which the behavior matters to us for some reason. And there can be many reasons why it matters, and I'll get to that in a minute. But as long as we care about it for some reason, then we're likely to be motivated. But if we don't care about the behavior, if it really doesn't matter to us at all, we're not likely to be motivated. And the third thing is the end result of a cost-benefit analysis. So if the benefits of engaging in the behavior outweigh the costs of engaging in the behavior, then we're more likely to be motivated. Whereas if the costs of engaging in a behavior in our minds, this is our belief, if the costs outweigh the benefits, then we're not likely to be motivated. And when I say costs, I mean it could be financial costs, but it might be costs in time or energy or emotion, things like that, whatever the cost is. And all three of these, the important thing to remember is it's our perception. It's my belief that I'm capable of being successful. It's my belief whether this thing is important. And it's my belief whether or not the benefits outweigh the costs. And sometimes my belief doesn't match up with others. So, for example, you might have a player, an athlete, who does not believe that he or she is capable of doing something, whereas the coach believes absolutely that that person is capable of doing it. But it doesn't matter what the coach believes. It only matters what the player believes. And if the player believes that he or she is not capable of doing whatever the behavior is, then he or she's likely to not be motivated.
I got that. I got that. Very educating. I got that. Okay, to bring this to an end, Brian, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who like to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, maybe you said some things that resonated with them and they'd love to learn more. How can that be possible?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I'll tell you, you can reach me on Instagram at Brian-Hite23. And you can reach me on Facebook, and you can look me up, Brian Hite. I believe it's Brian Hite 1. You can look me up on LinkedIn, again, Brian Hite. And you can go to my website, which is Brian Hite Global, GLOBAL.com, BrianHiteGlobal.com. And you'll find a lot of information about me, and you'll find some information about some packages, some programs that I offer. And I offer programs that target coaching programs, one-on-one coaching that targets motivation in a 5 or 6 week program, that targets pressure, as well as a 4-phased approach, which we didn't get into. Maybe if I come back to do another one, we can talk about that one. But it's a 4-phased approach to performance that really helps people break down an individual performance into a before, right before, during, and after in ways that allow them to really create conditions for success that they can replicate. So those programs are available on my website, and so feel free to check those out. And final thought to leave everybody with is really the theme of what we've been talking about is that our thoughts matter. Our perceptions matter. How we see and understand the world matters, and it's up to us. It's not the world that is a given. How we interpret it is entirely up to us. It's like Shakespeare said. In Hamlet, Shakespeare said, "Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." So whether things are good or bad is entirely up to us. It's all about how we look at it and how we choose to view it.
Review it. I got that. So that's going to be the end of the show, Brian. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing those powerful words with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was a beautiful